BlueScope Steel has reported a 64% fall in half-year profit as the tougher economic conditions cause a global decline in steel prices. Its half-year profit was about $600 million. That's roughly $1 billion lower than the same time last year. Well, joining me now is BlueScope Chief Executive Mark Vassella. Mark, thanks so much for your time today. Steel prices are falling. Is this a sign of deflation in the economy?
Ed, what we've seen is steel prices come off the extraordinary levels they were in FY22 as we went into the COVID pandemic and the supply side constraints that occurred during that time. We saw steel prices run to levels that we've never seen in the history of the steel industry. Hot rolled coil prices in North America went from the mid $400 to $1,900, which is an extraordinary number, never seen before in the history of the industry. So what we're seeing here is a reversion to a more normalised steel price and, of course, $851 million of EBIT or $600 million of NPAT, as you point out. Historically, that's still a very good result for BlueScope. What it is it's just a step down from the extraordinary levels of profitability that we'd seen in FY22.
Okay, so prices basically just coming back down to normal. But how tough is the economic environment right now?
We're still seeing a mix, Ed. I wouldn't say that we're seeing a cliff or we're expecting a dramatic fall off in demand. If I think about the economies that we're operating in, yes, we've seen interest rate increases in Australia and North America in particular. We still have that interesting dynamic of full employment, though, effectively. Everybody has a job that wants a job and wages have, we've seen some inflation in wages. So people are in work and they're getting paid well. So how that dynamic plays out, I think it's going to be interesting to see. Again, some of the macro factors that affect our business, detached housing, yes, it's off from the very, very high levels that we saw post the home builder stimulus package. But it's now running at about the average levels that it's operated at for decades, which for BlueScope is a good level of activity. And in North America, yes, again, interest rate increases, all sorts of chatter about recessions, but a massive build out to occur in the US economy for infrastructure, for green energy. And both of those areas are very high in steel intensity. So they're good outcomes for the steel industry in North America.
On Australia, the federal government wants to revamp the safeguard mechanism policy, which is designed to reduce carbon emissions by big emitters like yourself. What impact could a change in the safeguard mechanism have on BlueScope and your steel production here at home?
Well, depending how it unfolds here, Ed, we're right in the middle of a consultation period. The white paper was released in early January, so it's literally the ink is not dried, and we're in the consultation phase. And in fact, submissions are due on the white paper this Friday the 24th. So we have not yet even put a submission in. But we've been talking to the government. The government understand the value that we bring as a manufacturer. They understand the importance of sovereign capability. They understand the fact that we're an industry that's hard to abate. There's not a technology that's viable and currently available to replace the steelmaking technology that we have in our facility at Port Kembla. So we're talking to the government, early conversations. We're currently putting forward our submissions and thoughts, but encouragingly, the government are listening and understand the challenge that industries like the steel industry have.
But if there are changes to come through, would that be from the 1st of July this year?
Ed, it's just too early to speculate. As I said, we haven't even put a submission in yet. It's due on Friday. I don't really want to be discussing in public arguments or structures that I haven't even yet put to the government or put into the submission. So we will have a much better perspective, obviously, over the next few months as to the form that a safeguard mechanism will take and its impact on BlueScope. Suffice to say, we're obviously prosecuting our case as a hard-to-abate industry, but a critical industry from a sovereign capability perspective here in Australia.
Yeah, one topic we like to talk to you about every 6 months is the Port Kembla blast furnace reline and upgrade. How close are you to making a final investment decision on that project?
We're progressing in that project. We've got a project team with more than 100 people working on that right at the moment, Ed. So it's a massive project. There's 600 work packages. We're placing orders for long lead time items. We're working to a critical path that will see the blast furnace available for use from 2026. I think in the next 6 months, we'll have a much clearer view on a final decision. We're currently working through the pre-feasibility and feasibility stages of our capital approval process. and that involves developing the work packages, tendering, understanding the economics of the proposal. But yes, an enormous amount of work going on from the team at Port Kembla, and we're still heading towards a reline to be ready to take effect from 2026.
You're also flagging a softer second half of this year, particularly Asia and Midwest of the United States. Just talk to us about the North Star mill in Ohio. It was a huge factor in your record profit last year. What sort of changed since then?
Well, what we've seen prices come off. So as the supply chain constraints that we saw through COVID have eased, supplies come back online, more steel is available, and we've naturally seen prices fall from those extraordinary levels that I talked about earlier. So that's what's flowing through our business. We're seeing lower sell prices and still in some parts of our business quite high costs in terms of coal, and iron ore has been relatively consistent at about that $120 a tonne. So we've seen our spreads affected. One of the things we watch very carefully, Ed, with our business is we manage it very tightly from a cost and an efficiency perspective, but also we always maintain a really strong balance sheet. And being in a cyclical industry like the steel industry, where some halves it's very strong and other halves it's not, having the financial capacity to withstand those changes is one of the financial principles that we have in place in the company. So a balance sheet with $600 million of cash at bank means that we're in a very, very strong position to deal with the sort of cyclicality that we're seeing right now.
Well, Mark Vassella, Chief Executive at BlueScope Steel, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Ed.